Hi there. Today's book is in the category of military aviation, and it's Apache over Libya by Will Laidlaw. Now, previously, we've reviewed a couple of books on the Apache by Ed Macy, Apache and Hellfire, and that really gave you the inside story of flying the attack helicopter in combat in Afghanistan. And we were really lucky to get the Apache because there was a lot of opposition to the idea of an attack helicopter. Some of the powers that be in the Ministry of Defence and in the political establishment thought the money would have been better spent elsewhere. But um, in Afghanistan, there were comments made by senior military officers that they had changed their mind. They saw how effective the Apache was. So Um, following Afghanistan, and was slightly concurrent with it, um, was Libya, the Libyan situation, that nest of nastiness that is Libya, who were responsible for the murder of uh, WPC Yvonne Fletcher in St James's Square outside their embassy, and also responsible in part for emplacing the bomb on Pan Am 107. So that country was embroiled, and the UK decided to get involved, and it was decided to use airstrikes from a carrier, HMS Ocean. Now, when the Apaches were adopted, they were all given to the Army Air Corps, but there was an understanding that they would train for a naval role as well. But Afghanistan really took over, and it was hot, high desert operations, which was the focus, and rightly so. But then, when the need for this maritime role uh, came up, the author Will Laidlaw um, led his squadron to uh, to start investigating the maritime role for the Apache. And the book details the problems. The the pilots were all used to landing, sometimes in terrible conditions, in a complete dust off visibility wise, but the ground wasn't moving. Whereas the deck of the carrier is moving in both up and down and side to side with the swell of the ocean. It's also moving forward. So that was a problem. And the design of the Apache was for land operations. It's got a very high center of gravity, which is um, really not helped by the fact that it's got the huge radar assembly on top, the rotor radar, and it's got a narrow undercarriage, whereas helicopters designed specifically for carrier use have a wide undercarriage and also quite often have a folding tail boom for storage. Apache has neither. So on a rolling deck, it was rather unstable, so it had to be lashed down almost immediately on touchdown. Also, in the event of a capsize, with it being high center of gravity, it would tumble, and also uh, the escape from the Apache was by uh, deck cord emplaced in the canopy, which blew it and allowed you to escape that way. Trying that underwater would have been fatal. So they would have had to blow the canopy before they hit the water. So they spent a lot of time in the underwater bunker practicing procedures for that. Also, maritime helicopters have flotation aids, and the Apache didn't. So its chance of floating were minimal. It was like an anchor. it would go down. Also, it had to be proofed against seawater, spray, and so on, getting into all the vulnerable electronics, the weapon system, the intakes, and so on. So that was an ongoing task. So he talks about once they were briefed for Libya, the missile threat, there were man pads and every other type of missile known to man, from mainly from the Soviet arsenal, but there were thousands. It was kind of a missile heaven over there. So the environment was extremely dangerous, uh, particularly to a helicopter, which is not the fastest airborne vehicle. So they had to really get their counter missile procedures, the flight profile, and also the electronic countermeasures that are built into the Apache system. They have a voice that tells them what type of missile is coming up. It's a female voice, so they had to exercise that. Also, there was a lot of low-level flying. Um, and Libya is strewn with wires of various types, electrical wires, cables, telegraph wires, fencing, all sorts of things. And that was a terrible obstacle, and 100% concentration was needed to be able to evade these wires on the way to the target, because there's an envelope. If they fly too high, they're easily detected at range by the missile crews, and if they fly too low, they hit the wires. So every night they were juggling this. They, as soon as they were about to start the first mission, Sky News reported the fact that HMS Ocean was off the Libyan coast and ready to strike. So well done to the media for their usual considerate job to our armed forces. So altogether, during the Libyan operation, they fired 99 Hellfires and they flew 48 sorties. And they're all detailed, most of them are detailed in the book. They're quite hair-raising. They had lots of successes supporting the other arms of um, of the military in their endeavours over there. At the end of the day, we can't really say Libya was a success because it's still a hellhole. But uh, the operations that the Apache force conducted certainly were highly successful, and really was another feather in the cap of the attack helicopters.